Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Rusty Hicks, chair of the California Democratic Party. Chair Hicks, thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to be with you.
The gerrymandering fight that started in Texas has now made its way to the Golden State. And in an effort to fight fire with fire, that's how he's describing it, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation that will leave it up to the voters in his state to decide if the congressional maps will be redrawn. And this measure is in direct retaliation to what Texas is doing in their redistricting effort, because the new Texas maps have the potential to flip 5 blue seats in the House red. The California maps will do the opposite, potentially flip 5 red districts to blue. So to start off the conversation, what has been happening in California within the past week? Can you describe this redistricting fight?
Well, I think since President Trump returned to the White House, California has felt the brunt, the full force, the full weight of this administration that disagrees with the direction of California and a vision for our country. And as a result of that, Californians have experienced the pain, the suffering of what that really means. And so when Donald Trump makes his way to Texas and starts shopping around for congressional seats, and Texas lawmakers take him up on the deal, it's incumbent upon California to step forward and, as you said, as our governor has said, to fight fire with fire, to respond when the rules are being changed. It's not that Donald Trump wants to operate by a different set of rules. He doesn't want to operate by any set of rules at all. And so, California voters passed an independent redistricting process in 2010. But 2010 looks a lot different than where we are today in 2025. At the end of the day, this measure has been put forward by California Democrats and Governor Newsom that puts the power in the hands of the voters. In fact, it goes beyond putting the power in the hands of the voters. It actually gives them the maps to make a choice on. It puts this as a temporary decision. We revert back to an independent commission following the census process in 2030 and then into 2032. So I think it's an appropriate, measured response for a really challenging moment in our nation's history.
What critics are saying is that you're saying you don't like gerrymandering, you disagree with what Republicans are doing in Texas, but they say 2 wrongs don't make a right. Isn't this hypocrisy? What do you say to that criticism?
I say in many ways our democracy is at stake. When you have a president and congressional Republicans and Republicans around the country that are willing to rewrite history, to rewrite the rules, you can't simply just stand by and do nothing. And this measure is going to put the power in the hands of the voters, respect the will of the voters, which has nothing to do with what other states, Republican states, have done. California Democrats don't want to be in this fight. We never wanted to be in this fight. But we have to do something to respond to an administration that is trying to lock in their power for years and years to come.
Why did California jump into this fight? Because this was a Texas fight. Texas Democrats then fled the state, and then California got involved. So can you lead us to how exactly your state got involved?
Well, I think it's a recognition that if Texas is going to attempt to essentially take 5 Democratic seats off the table just by redrawing the lines, California, with 52 congressional seats, 9 of which are Republican today, could attempt to do the same thing. We'll ultimately see what the voters have to say on November 4th.
And I know that Democrats in Texas think that their voice is being diminished by the redrawing of the maps. Do you think Republicans in California, their voices are being diminished? I mean, what do you say to them, those constituents? I know you're a Democrat. I know you're the chair of the Democratic Party. But What do you say to them if they think, hey, my voice doesn't matter here? Or that's what it's seeming like based on these new maps.
Well, the voices of 22 million California voters is what will ultimately matter. And certainly, if Republicans here in California are unhappy with what is happening here in California, they might want to have a conversation with their colleagues in Texas that initially started this conversation. I think I'm not sure and I was born and raised in Texas. And so it pains me to see this. I think they thought they were going to walk down this road alone, that they were going to be able to do this without any sort of a response. But I think, as a Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi said, they shouldn't be walking down this road. But if we're going to walk down this road, we're going to walk down it together.
To that point, then, do you want other states, particularly other blue states, to join you in this fight?
Well, certainly that'll be a decision that they ultimately have to make. I suspect there are other Republican-controlled states that would attempt to consider to do the same thing. And so other states like Illinois or New York or Maryland, I think they have to think long and hard about their decision to step into this fray. This has become a nationwide fight because we're really talking about the control of Congress. We're really talking about cutting Donald Trump's term in half, which, if Democrats get control of the House, that's likely what you would see. And so this is not this is not the fight of one state. This is really a fight across the country.
California has been called the gold standard of redistricting because of that independent commission. I'm curious who exactly drew these maps, because it was promised that it's going to be a transparent drawing. It said that there was a collaboration. Do you have any details on who exactly drew them?
I think there's a number of voices that were a part of ensuring that these maps came forward that are still falling under the provisions of the Voting Rights Act, which, oh, by the way, Texas doesn't do, and actually may have actually even drawn better maps than the independent commission did. I mean, California Democrats support independent redistricting. Certainly, there's a recognition that this is an emergency break the glass kind of a moment, which is why this has moved forward in the way that it has. But the legislature ultimately brought this forward, passed this bill, was signed. These measures were signed by the governor and will be on the November 4th ballot.
And I think what was happening with some of the assembly members, some of the Democrats, they were a little light on the details of who exactly was involved in the process of drawing the maps. One assembly member said this: "When I go to a restaurant, I don't need to meet the chef, I just enjoy the food." So were there any special interest groups drawing these maps? I mean, who specifically was involved?
Well, it's a process that's initiated by the legislature, and so there's a small handful of folks who can actually have the skill that is required to be able to draw these maps that keep communities of interest together, that are contiguous. In some cases, that in historical terms they have not been. So there are technical experts. There are, community advocates that focus around one community or other that are a part of the conversation that result in the maps that we have today.
And what do you think is next for this fight? I know there's a special election in November. So what are you doing between now and then?
Well, 74 days at the time that we're having this conversation, and that is an incredibly short runway to stand up a campaign, to raise the resources that are required to communicate with millions of voters across California. The advantage is that voters are truly, really aware of what's going on. They may not understand every detail of reapportionment and where this line is and that line is, but they are aware, much because, in many ways because of what is the conversation that is happening in the media. They are aware of what Texas has done, what Donald Trump has asked for, and as a result, what California has done. And so awareness is incredibly high. It'll be a robust conversation over the next 60 days or so.
And regardless of if this passes or not, do you think that Democrats could still flip these seats regardless of where these congressional lines are? What policies specifically do you think are most important to Californians now and also for the midterms?
Well, I often say that we don't own these seats, we rent these seats. And we rent them every 2 years. And so, yes, maybe there's a leaning towards one political party or the other, but we've got to go out and fight and earn all of these seats. And so, I know there's talk about, it will hand this many seats over to Democrats or hand this many seats over to Republicans. I don't really believe that. I think, obviously we'll see what the voters say on November 4th, but whatever the maps are, we're going to have to fight for every single seat that we pick up. And so, I think the issues that are really top of mind for all California voters really are those kitchen table issues, affordability issues, the cost of housing, the price of gas, the ability to get a good quality education for your child, to have a good job. Obviously, the Trump administration has thrown a lot of chaos into our economic environment. And at the same time, you've got, immigrant communities that are being targeted and immigrants pulled off the street, many of them with no criminal record, many of them U.S. citizens themselves. And so, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of chaos, and certainly ensuring that we provide some level of stability that keeps Californians working, that allows them to take care of their families, is what is top of mind for most voters.
And it does seem like Governor Gavin Newsom is fighting fire with fire when it comes to President Trump in a different way, that way being on social media. At the beginning of this year, Gavin Newsom seemed to be trying to make inroads with Republicans. He had guests like Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon on his podcast. Over the past week or so, on his social media, he has taken direct aim at President Trump. He's trolling President Trump, mimicking the way President Trump posts on social media. What do you make of those posts? What do you make of that strategy?
Well, for better or worse, we live in an attention economy, and the ability to garner attention and then communicate a message that changes the minds of the public is taking a platform to a different level. And so, I know the Trump administration has started to complain about Governor Newsom's, quote, trolling of the White House. But in my view, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. In many ways, this has been Donald Trump's bread and butter, part of his con job for more than a decade. And just because the governor puts something in capital letters, suddenly it's like attention headline grabbing kind of activity. I do think that he is garnering the attention of Californians and Americans to be able to push back on this administration.
And Democrats were at a crossroads since the 2024 loss, and polling has suggested that Democratic voters would much rather see their Democratic leaders push back on the Trump administration than not. So do you think that the Democratic Party should, A, take note of what California is doing, and B, follow that strategy between now and the midterms?
Well, I think everybody brings something different to the fight. Every leader, whether you're here in California or in another part of the country, will bring something different to this fight that involves all of us. Certainly, Governor Newsom is bringing his brand and his style of politics to the fight, and certainly there's the California way. They say the winds of change blow from the west to the east, and so California, the fourth largest economy in the world, The Golden State is going to be driving for many, many years to come, and Governor Newsom's been an important part of that.
Chair Rusty Hicks, I appreciate the conversation today. I can only imagine how busy you must be between now and the next 74 days. So thank you for the time. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you.